Well, hey everybody, Wes McDonald here, and as always, I am with my good friend Kenneth Edmonds. How are you, Ken?
I am fine, Wes. How are you doing today?
Oh, no complaints, as we were saying just into the lead-in. Man, this is one busy day, but as they say, it is much better to be busy than bored. So certainly,
Yeah,
you
I can't remember ever being bored in my life because I make myself busy. But
know,
that's the ADHD at work. It just makes you do that. Anyway, so you're at your home office.
I am.
I'm at my home office in Central Florida. You're in Canada, eh?
That's right, eh? And of course, your favorite question you like to ask before we get these things started.
Where's everybody else watching from? Because we have people that come in from the UAE. We have guests that come in and visit from Europe, just all over the place. And if you're watching this on the replay, let us know, even on the replay, where you watched from, because we like to see the people we're connected with. And this is going to be, I'm looking forward to our discussion today. It's going to be a lot of fun. I was talking with Dr. Kimberly Janson before the start of the show, and she and I are on the same page on so many things. But let's bring her in. What do you say?
I think it's a great idea.
So the question is, where are you joining us from today?
I'm actually in Ohio today. Typically, I'm outside of Boston, but my second business is we build, breed, train, compete high-end show jumpers. So I drove 7 horses overnight to the World Equestrian Center for the week, and my son and partner in that business is competing as we speak. So I'm working from here today.
That's a nice thing about our type of business is you can do this remotely from just about anywhere.
That's right. Horse
And
training.
Greg is in Florida, but he said an altered state. I'm just not going to go there, Greg. Well, let's show his comment. I'll just leave that alone unless you want to chime in yourself and explain which altered state. But Florida's better than Michigan this time of year, that's for sure.
Is it an altered state because it's the land of Disneyland, where all of your dreams can come true?
Oh, is that what it is? Okay. I mean, growing up in the 60s, an altered state could have a lot of different connotations.
It's true. And hey, folks, don't forget as you're watching today as well, leave your comments and questions. It's much more fun when you interact. So as we move through today, you have anything you want to share, either a question or an opinion, anything at all, the state of your altered state, let us know.
Okay, and so to start with, Kim, you want to let us know a little bit about your background and how you got started on what you're doing?
Yeah. So I have really been so fortunate to work with great companies and great people along the way. I have more than 20 years in large organizations, typically as the person most senior on talent or organizational effectiveness. So that would be chief talent officer, chief diversity officer, head of leadership, or head of organizational effectiveness. And the companies were Bank of Boston, Hasbro. So lots of fun there growing up and being the super aunt and then the super mom with having my kids there. And then Bank of America. So Brian Moynihan's the CEO there. Brian's a tremendous leader. And I was his head of leadership development. And then from there, I went to Heinz, the ketchup company, and did a lot of global transformational work there. So then, I went and built a business, and 10 years in at Janson Associates, and we do work in 4 buckets: executive coaching, quite a lot, really helping teams be better in a lot of different ways, a tremendous amount of organizational transformation. So strategy, growth, culture, talent systems. And then the 4th arm is research, which gets parlayed into quite a lot of thought leadership, books, articles, etc. So, and as I mentioned, I got a side hustle, which is the show jumping business.
Oh, very nice. I have a side hustle. Go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, I was just going to say I have to jump in because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and the number of Hasbro toys that I have in this house is absolutely
yes. I love that. Well, if you walked into my office at Hasbro, the first thing you would see is a huge lightsaber, just, in case meetings got out of hand or, we needed a little extra power of the force.
Yeah,
Okay, so I think you had the wrong position at Hasbro, though. If I was going to work at Hasbro, the title I'd want would be Chief Toy Tester.
Yeah, well, that's the title of my children. They were in the product testing program, and they felt like little executives. And man, oh man, were they so careful and filling out the feedback forms. Or what a great place! What a great place! Hasbro. Their mantra is we make kids smile, we make the world smile, and they do it with a lot of wonderful positive character.
I can tell you they still make a lot of big kids like me smile too. And unfortunately, the smiles get bigger and the expenses get bigger. Because Hasbro has released a series of toys which they basically crowdsource now, prior to development. So if you kind of invest your money ahead of time, then they'll decide at the end if they'll actually build it. And there's one of them, the ship from The Mandalorian, which I want to get my hands on. So I'll leave it alone now. But that's my next Hasbro, gold award if I can get my hands on it.
Yeah, what a blast! So fun.
Yeah.
But that's in hand.
So let me ask our first real question for today. We've had some fun, but why do you think that most companies don't make the best decision for leadership roles? You and I talked a little bit beforehand, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think there's a number of root causes. One of the things you and I discussed before we came live is there is a lack of understanding of the true differentiated skill set that's required to be a strong leader. It's a science. There's master's programs in leadership and how to do it well, but the way we treat it, we're quite disrespectful about that. And we have the equivalent of, wow, you speak really great French on Friday afternoon, and Monday we expect them to speak Mandarin well. Technical skills are very different than leadership skills. And so I think a big root cause is that companies don't understand that, pay homage to it, and then build the right systems or support or expectations, and don't hold people accountable around those things. That's the root cause, in my opinion.
And I agree so much, because I've seen this in our industry, and we're primarily in, let's say, in the copier business, or let's say office equipment business now is a better term, or managed services for offices. So many different variations of it. But I see so many cases where they'll walk up to their best sales guy or their best technician, and they'll say, "Poof, you're the manager." They turn around and walk away, and that was the end of the training. Right. And these people, and I go back to what you were saying about skill sets. These people have great skill sets to sell, or they have great skill sets to fix equipment. But leadership, how to fix people, how to achieve the things they need to, those things don't exist in their skill set.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. And I think the other related root cause is, as a consequence, they then don't pick the right people. And we find that with the amount of money they have put into the leadership and management development industry, I mean, just hundreds of billions of dollars, we're not fixing the issue. And my opinion for a long time has been because we're solving for the wrong thing. We need to solve up front with selection and pick better people who have more potential to be good leaders, and then help them and teach them the behaviors and skill sets, et cetera. But there's so many people I encounter in the work I've done on the ground in more than 40 countries. I've worked with more than 300 companies. The pattern's the same. You have people in the role that simply shouldn't be there.
Yeah, and so that kind of leads into the next question I had for you is, why should performance not be the I excuse the typing, but why should performance not be the criteria for promotion? Not.
Yeah.
I'll fix that.
I think we've started to lay the groundwork as to why. And the short answer is past performance is not a predictor of future potential unless the job is exactly the same. And I would say that performance is critically important, right? That earns you the ticket to enter into a conversation about what else and what's next, which is the potential conversation. But if I have these skill sets 1 through 5 to do this job, presumably to do the job at the next level, it should be 4 through 9, right? There's some crossover, but they're different skill sets. And because you did 1 through 5 doesn't mean you can do the next level. And as you grow in an organization, things change, like breadth, depth, and what you should handle in terms of the amount of complexity. Well, you need more. And so performance isn't an indication of that. Other things are, for sure, though.
I agree 100% with that. I think that goes back to the reason we see so many people in those positions that really don't have the skill set. Now, they may gain the skill set, but it's going to be a long, slow learning curve for them, if they didn't have the skill set to get started into that. And I think, let me pop up with the next question I have for you, and then we'll talk about, I thought, at the end of this. But what are some of the raw ingredients that future leaders should have? So, if you were in an organization, you're trying to help them put together a methodology to develop their future leaders, what are some of the things that they should look for in people that they're going to start plugging into this career track?
Yeah, there's a number of things, but I think there are 4 that are critical determinants of whether people have the potential. And I'll explain this a little bit more further. But those determinants are intelligence, personality. And what I mean by that is no derailing personality characteristics that are polarizing. The third one is motivation. We got to hire people with big engines. We can't manufacture that as leaders of others. They have to bring that. And then also learning agility, the amount of information and speed, et cetera, and the changes in the market, we need ongoing reinvention. And so learning agility is essential. So for me, those are the selection criteria that can predict higher levels of performance at the higher levels. Other things that are essential, and you might think this is overused, but it's at its core, is emotional intelligence. Because what the 4 components tell us is self-regulation, self-awareness, and then trust and empathy is the difference maker for folks. And by the way, those are developable. But so many studies will show you that people are hired for IQ, fired because of EQ. Then you have the other components around coachability, and do they have a desire? For me, it's grit. That's a little related to motivation. But so much for me buckets into those 4 components. And they really are worthy of a deep dive to bank a lot of your time, assessment, use, things of that nature around those 4.
Okay. And I agree 100% with that. Let's address Greg's comment here. He said, but hasn't performance been watered down to adherence to the process? And then he says, is one skill set the ability to commit to the process?
Process definitely has a powerful role in organizations because the amount of variation that can exist produces higher risk and costs more money. And that's not a good business decision. But process should be coupled with judgment. And I'm certainly not going to hire someone based on their adherence to process. I'm going to hire someone who has demonstrated the capacity to look at the factors to make a good decision, and then knows the power that process can bring when it makes sense. And so performance in some roles, for sure, has been watered down to adherence to the process. But those aren't the folks that I'm hiring. I'm looking for people who can learn and grow and make it better, make me better, change our process to make it better, so that the things that we do in a routine way, i.e. process, we do it faster, et cetera, to create capacity to be able to do other things in a more robust way.
I love those things that you said. And one of the things I talk to service managers about, and as I expand into teaching other management, like intro to management courses, because so many times what management training is available is very specialized for sales or specialized for something else. But there's not many that teach okay, you're a brand new supervisor. Here are the things that you need to know. There's so many things, and you mentioned that some of them. I talk about mentoring and empathy and motivation and all of these little pieces that go together to help a person learn the art of supervision or the art of management. I use the terms interchangeably, though they're different words. We think of them very similarly. But I think that one of the key pieces is that it is every leader's responsibility, starting at the top of the organization down, to teach their subordinates the things they need and help them, mentor them, actually, let's say is even a better choice of this, of helping them learn to be a leader. I talk to my service managers about the fact that they need to start developing their replacement, because first of all, if you don't have a replacement, you're never going to get promoted. And secondly, it means you can go on vacation. There's so many reasons to do that. But again, it's not necessarily your most proficient tech. Along the things you said about process, I like the person that's curious about why the process is the way it is, that asks questions. I like the person that wants to learn above and beyond the bare minimum. The people that are interested in taking like additional training. Maybe the company pays for things, but they don't pay you to do it. So who are the people that are asking about and doing those kinds of things? Because that shows they have the inner drive to grow. Yep. The guy that can follow a process and do it good and be perfect in the process, but doesn't do any of those things, is probably not going to succeed as a leader, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't emphasize how compelling your thoughts are. And, as a redhead, I have some hot buttons. Talking about my New England Patriots is a hot button. People who are in roles who don't take the mantle of management and leadership seriously and learn what it takes to be a good leader and then doesn't perpetuate that through the organization, it's a complete hot button, to the point that that's exactly why I wrote my first book, Demystifying Talent Management, because people just don't know. And I'm just raging against that. I've built a 12 workshop program to break down the pieces of what it takes to be a good manager, because they have those 4 components, to your point: high learning agility, what you mentioned, high motivation, a personality that's not polarizing, and then intelligence to be able to say why, and let me be curious about this, and let me analyze this, right? If they have those 4, I can teach them anything. And so I'm with you, and you can see I get fired up about it, because it's just, we are negatively impacting so many people around the world through bad leaders, and I'm going to stop it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm on that mission too. West had a comment for you. I don't know if you see it there.
I did not. Okay.
Go Bills.
Yeah, it wasn't worth repeating.
Oh.
Yeah. My most unprofessional self talking football.
But yeah, I had something else. So we did that one. So let's talk about your leadership blueprint. So what are some of the things that make up the leadership blueprint? How did you develop it? And how can others benefit from it?
Yeah, and to give credit where credit's due, I didn't develop it. I found it. And it was created by 2 guys, Alan Church and Rob Silser, around 2014. And Alan, man, I just love that guy so much. He is the former head of talent for PepsiCo, and he has worked with just such esteemed organizations, Hogan Assessments and others. And they were struggling with the same thing that I get frustrated with, which is there's so many different ways people go at it, but we've got a root cause issue. And so particularly Alan built a tremendous infrastructure on the front end around in PepsiCo to help with that. And if you know anything about someone coming out of PepsiCo, they're going to be a good leader, right? Like you can take that to the bank. And so I said, all right, let's really tear this apart. And essentially the 4 components of the blueprint is what I've mentioned. And so the premise is you have to select for intelligence because it doesn't change. What we're born with is what we have. It's a hard truth. We may like this person a lot. We're not going to make them smarter. They can have more knowledge. They can sharpen some analytical skills. We can help build a process to help them go through the motions of thinking strategically to get to good outcomes, but it's fixed. And we have to be serious about that because things only become more complex as we go up in an organism. The component that I've referenced is personality. And it's an interesting piece that it's a little taboo to talk about personality, but nobody wants to be around someone who's very negative. Nobody wants to be around someone who is very self-focused or incredibly low risk, or right. Those are things that separate you out as a leader. And I was the chief diversity officer for 2 Fortune 500 companies. I'm not going to tell you that one personality type makes for a good leader. I will tell you, be very serious about derailing traits that you see because they will continue to come up. Their personality is largely fixed according to centuries of research. This, every once in a while you'll have someone come out and say that's not true. Behaviors are changeable. Deep-seated, ingrained personality traits, unless some significant thing happens in someone's life, they're not modifiable. Now, the other 2 pieces I mentioned is motivation and learning agility. You've got to have that in order for managers and leaders to be able to keep recreating themselves. So I said, this has so much merit. It resonates with me as a practitioner for more than 20 years. It resonates in terms of from the academic side that I've seen and the meta-analysis I did through so much research. Let me try it out. So my dissertation actually was on what criteria people are using to determine leadership potential. And I did that in one industry, interviewing leaders at 4 levels in an organization at a number of organizations. The amount of variation that existed would have just made your hair stand up on fire. In one company, between those 4 leaders, one company, they used 175 different criteria for what they looked for to determine whether someone had leadership potential. Massive failure. So I said, okay, that's one industry. What does it look like broader? Did a research group of about 600 across the globe, similar results. I said, all right, let's focus on the CEOs. I did a CEO study. This is all sponsored through the International Research Board. That study, more than 50 CEOs, Brian from Target, or the CEO from Foot Locker, or Panera, or Standard Chartered Bank, companies that you know very well. There was such convergence on so many items. And what's interesting in all of that research is when I asked the criteria, less than 20% would say anything like intelligence, learning agility, motivation, et cetera. But then I went back and I would say, hey, there's some that come to my mind. Let me ask you about those. Do you use intelligence? Is that a critical factor for you? Oh, absolutely. So in that research, not only did it solidify the importance of those, it also magnified the fact that it's not top of mind and there's too much variation in how people are thinking about it, their process and frameworks and how they're doing it. And going back to the question, wrapping this up, the leadership blueprint synchronizes all this in a very common everyday language. It's not abstract or scientific or scholarly. It resonates a great deal, which is why I love it.
And that brings to mind an interesting question, and it might be an interesting study for you. because one of the things I suggest to service managers is that they find a test that they're going to use to, select employees, and that they take their high performers and run them through this, and then do that on the ones that are not as good, and look at what's different between them. And then when they give a new candidate that same test, they have an idea of what to look for. And I'm wondering if, I know you've got the leadership blueprint, that's an example, but just in general for people that are hiring, at the entry level, but you want some keys for success down the road with them, because I think that everybody should look at every person they hire as a potential leader in their company in the future and build that direction. I think that should be a corporate philosophy. But I think that if you could quantify on some of the other tests, maybe some things that make people succeed, and it might depend on categories. So like a sales manager his profile might look a little different than successful service managers. But to me that, or to HR managers, or the different kinds of things, I think that might be an interesting, some interesting information. I don't know if it'd be easy to determine, but I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think what you're doing in that is a couple of things. The method of doing a job analysis and looking at high performers and what they bring and comparing that to low performers to distill the components is just genius work. It's not hard work, but it's really impactful work. And it can help you also understand the cultural components for what's true for that particular organization. But you're also double clicking on one of the four, which is personality. Personality plays a big role in fit based on, frankly, what we're interested in. If I'm so oriented by growth and the world of possibility and people and things of that nature, I'm much more of a sales leader fit or a salesperson fit. If I'm much more about making things work and linear thinking, I'm much more of a technical fit. Now, we all can be anything we want. It's just if I'm inclined to the left and I'm doing work to the right, I'm going to be exhausted at the end of the day. That's the only thing to consider. But yes, there are a lot of strong matches of work and preferences in terms of people's personality. So I think you're right on the money. And the good news is a number of companies are using some of these tools to help people see that, but also match better job fits to
Lost audio.
Here we go.
Okay, we lost your audio for a second. I don't know whether it was, I lost your audio, so I don't know if it was me or you, but we were hung for a second there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
my last statement was we simply underuse assessments, and really strong leaders should take initiative to get steeped in understanding different assessments that are out there. It doesn't have to be complicated. The websites that were shown, I really appreciate that. There's another one called determiningleadershippotential.com. We've built that with my co-author, Melody Rawlings. We've built that to show, here are questions you can ask to source it, but here's another resource. Here are all different assessments and what they do, and here's our preference, et cetera. So I think, to your point, the more data we have on folks, whether it's style or fit or job requirements, then the better the match we can do.
Yeah. So Wes been very busy in the background. He's got a sick puppy, so he's taking care of that. But he's been very helpful on doing our graphics today. We don't want everybody to know think he just ran away from us. And obviously he's brought up some websites. I will post up I do have your contact information. So if you want to get in touch with her, there's all of the stuff that you want. I will post that on LinkedIn and in the Facebook group as well. I would encourage you, and I encourage everybody, if you're leading an organization at any level, I would encourage you to start learning about things like this, to spend some time digging into it. I talk about in one of the webinars about sharpening the saw, the constant, it's a responsibility of every leader in any organization to improve their skill set and improve the skill set of their employees. I firmly believe that. And did we lose you again, Kim?
I'm here.
Oh, again, it could be me freezing up, but it was froze for a second.
Okay. Sharpening the saw. And I agree. And, it's not scary stuff. It's not hard stuff, but it is specific stuff. And it takes a little self-discipline to move our way from, it's like, learning golf. If you've never golfed before, there's things that you need to understand in the full cycle. And then there's some practice that you'll need. So quite similar.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kim, for being with us today. Thanks for being in the background, Wes. Good to see you again. For our audience, if you want to learn more, reach out. We are so fortunate to have great experts come on our show for us. Now, next week, sad to say, Wes is speaking at a conference, I think, right, Wes? You want to tell them about it? I can't hear you. You're muted. You're still muted.
Yeah, I'm speaking twice, actually. So once I'm actually doing a session on artificial intelligence, some of the things that are happening right now with generative AI. So you can catch me on the Wednesday session down in Fort Lauderdale. On Thursday, I'll be part of a managed print services panel, talk about managed print for those that are providing IT services and other MSPs. So certainly excited about that. And appreciate taking the reins entirely today, Ken, my poor puppy. But until next time, as I like to say always, first of all, thank you, Kimberly, and keep learning.
And keep leveling up.
All right, until next time.